Hello and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who's off to rescue a pig in a poke, as it were.
Tim Longo.
Not entirely an apt expression, really, because I looked it up. I was like, I have no idea what that means. It's not really something you hear it, but you're like, what does that mean? It means you haven't seen it. You haven't seen the goods, is a pig in a poke. Apparently, a poke is a sack, and people used to sell piglets sight unseen in a sack.
Wow! What
this goes back to the 16th century. It's not a recent,
not a recent bartering.
Approach. This is not something we do in Maryland. Hello, we are talking about Paige and Beyond Good and Evil, because poor Paige has, as we mentioned last time, has been abducted by the evil Doms and Alpha section, the Alpha people, and have been taken off to the Slaughterhouse, which, if you're a pig, I'm sure that's not some place you want to go. And
it's also implied that the people are slaughtered there.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. Right? Yep. Yeah, but I think it's meant to be like it used to be a slaughterhouse.
Yeah, right.
And now it's been taken over, but it's also still called a slaughterhouse, and we know what's happening there.
Like they didn't turn it into a convention center or anything.
No, it's not a meeting hall. It's a big space with lots of conveyor belts, I guess. And a lot of sludge.
Rough history that this planet has. I don't know. I mean, it's still. I know we talked about it in the previous two episodes, but I just had hit it a little bit here. Again, I still find it a very intriguing world. Like it's obviously we're only in this small little mini open world, or I don't know. I call it maybe hub and spoke. Maybe I don't know. It's hard to call it open world, but it's not open world. But
no, it's not really.
Hub and spoke is probably the closest, with a very clever hub, like Ocarina of Time. Yeah, there we go. Cleverly developed and produced hub, I guess, by focusing around the hovercraft. But I still there's enough there, like with the boundaries that even though there are boundaries, it feels, well fleshed out for its size to make me intrigued about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it's like this archipelago on this big water planet, presumably. Like, we don't know, but we assume that maybe this is the only habitable space, and that you can get around. And they've got kind of the area that's meant to be protected, that's encircled by this. I love that, because at the beginning of the game, you have these boundaries, which are you can't cross them. And you're like, well, I can see there's another island out there. I guess that's just backdrop. Then, of course, you can go there.
Right, exactly.
So
especially once you get the detectors and you're like, how am I going to get to the animals out there or the pearls out there, right?
Exactly.
So you get the jump thing. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think that the whole animal photography thing is part of, for me, why it feels bigger than it really is, and that there is much more of a fleshed out ecosystem. It's not that complicated, and it's really not that fleshed out. It's just a bunch of creatures that are placed in random places, and not random places, but placed around the world. But it gives you this, especially when the person you send them to, who I'm forgetting, I can hear her voice, but
I can't remember
who she is.
Yeah.
Especially, when you find a rare one, she has something specific to say about it. And so it makes it feel like, oh, this planet is teeming with life, and I'm investigating, this animal life over time. So, it's just, those are little clever kind of takeaways for me, because it's an economical way to give you a sense of something, that there's something larger when there really isn't.
Yeah, you have this sense that there's a whole like taxonomy, evolutionary tree or whatever, of all these other creatures that you could be photographing. That you're just not happening to, in this adventure or whatever. That there's not only is there the Trilobitis sultans or whatever, but there might be 6 others, and you just you're not encountering them this time around. But that, because she will say, as she describes them to you, things like, oh, we thought this one was extinct, and she just gets this sense of a larger ecosystem that is entirely manufactured in your mind. They put out these things you take pictures of, and there's some fun mechanical stuff with them at times. You mentioned the hiding snail, which, by the way, I went back to Black Isle because I had a couple animals in there to get, and I had not, in fact, got the one you mentioned to me. I had gotten another one that was in a space that I had not thought to look, and I was like, I don't remember that. I didn't find the spongy thing he was talking about, so I went down to the room with the spongy thing, and the spongy thing itself is a creature.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, yeah. And I think I did that, but I forgot that I did it. Yeah.
So I didn't go down into there, and I did this week, but I didn't last week when I went back. I found others.
Oh, you didn't go far enough, you mean, to find the snail, you mean?
I didn't go down there. No, I didn't go down there at all. I hadn't gone down that pathway, period. Yeah. So I went back, and I was like, where is this? Oh, wait a minute. There's a path I didn't even go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say the dungeons, there's often times like that feeling you just mentioned. I do have fairly often in the dungeons and I think, not to harp on the camera, but I think it has a lot to do with the camera problems in the game, where I'm getting turned around or things look the same, sometimes, and I'm like, did I already go down here? And
yeah.
Unfortunately, the map doesn't have a fog of war kind of situation, which might have been nice. I don't think it does.
No, it does. At least on the PlayStation 3, it does.
And what does it do when you've gone to a space that you haven't been to?
There's like a gray versus white, or lighter versus darker shade.
Oh, okay. I thought that might have been levels.
It's also for levels, but like the level gray is different.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, it's not amazing. Because, well, is that true? No, yeah, I think that's true. I think that they show the under layers, but then there's also like you haven't explored this area. I know that's true. I was just playing before we got on the cast, and
okay.
I used it to find my way to. I'm like, how am I can't figure out how to get to where I want to go. I didn't quite finish the Slaughterhouse, and that's where I was like, wait a minute, I must be able to. Oh, there's a path I didn't go down, and it's because I used the map.
Before we leave the animals, though, did you find the whale out in the ocean?
I did. Yeah, there's 2 whales actually.
Yeah, that was I wanted to mention that example because whales. It's a clever. It's kind of, I guess it's a pretty obvious choice, but it's also a clever choice because whales are so rare and mysterious to us in real life, So, and the fact that once you do get over that barrier, and then there's one out there. In fact, you can see it splashing if you're looking out there before you can get over the barrier.
Yep.
And and the fact, and it actually has some unique, cool audio to it and stuff when it jumps, and you can track it underwater, and then when it jumps up, you can take the picture. So, again, it's like it's Star Wars always, I felt like, did generally a good job at this too, where they find an archetype of something that's close enough to something on Earth that we would relate to, and then they turn it into science fiction, and then you're like, oh, I have a little bit more of a connection and touchstone for this thing, even though it's an alien thing. Star Trek also did a good job at that, generally. So yeah, it's good. It's good sci-fi tropes that I think they're using, very efficiently, effectively.
Yeah, agreed. Although in Star Trek, I think generally those things were trying to kill you, more than in Star Wars, maybe. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, I just mean obviously Star Trek had their budgetary elements
sure. With the humanoids, obviously. Yeah,
for the humanoids is what I meant. Yeah, just like, oh, this one is the one that's of this, and they do this in this game too. Even the names of things, right? They take the taxonomy of names for creatures on Earth, and they mix it up a little bit when you take a picture of something, right?
Right.
The shark people are I forget what's the scientific name for shark.
Yeah, throwing it on me there. I don't know it.
Sorry, yeah. Well, you failed me this time.
Sorry.
But you know what I mean? It's like it's they take part of the real word and combine it with something else because it's a humanoid, and it's very clever.
Yeah. I mean, they have the little frogs and things like that are also kind of similar in that way, and all the different bugs and the snails, and then that giant spudge brain thing, and I mean, just lots of weird stuff. It's it's a lot of fun to take a picture of those, and there are quite a lot of them. I think I've got maybe 5 more to do on this roll of film, and I can't remember if I have 1 or 2 more rolls of film to go after this. So I've been banging them out. I spent a lot of time on side content, which is maybe where we can go to next, and then we'll get to we'll take that and go to the ship upgrades next, and from there to back to the slaughterhouse we mentioned earlier. But what content did you do?
Well, really quick on this, on the photos, you mentioned the sack, which is like their
inventory. Yep.
Yeah, inventory. I haven't looked at the photo listings. Do they show like a silhouette of the creature or something, or how do they represent what you still haven't found?
They don't.
Oh, so you don't know how many.
You don't know. You don't know how many.
It's like the pearls have a slot, and it's like you fill the slot, essentially.
Right, and that's also true. I mean, some of the pearls are the film, the photos, but you don't know. You know how many slots there are for the pearls, but you don't know how many of them are pearls. I mean, are photo related. I don't think.
No, I just meant like there's not like a grid of all the different creatures.
No, it's not like it's not like I don't know, Breath of the Wild or something where you've got it's 1 to 100 or whatever it is, and you can go look for them, and it might even have more details. Like that's definitely a team size constraint. It's not something we had designed yet. I think at that point. The players really like the collectibles. In fact, you can give them tons of them, but you need to give them hints if there's going to be that many.
I think, legacy-wise, this game is a baby step in that direction. I was surprised at this era for them even to have the pearl tracking that they do have,
right?
And to have the trackers,
the detectors.
Yeah.
We mentioned those in passing last week, and those are a couple of the upgrades you can buy at Ming Su's, and along with pearls occasionally, and other things. But those are things that I went as soon as I had amassed all kinds of whatever credits, and I was like, oh, I should see what else I can buy here. Oh, and while we're on that topic, I want to note I was wrong last week when I said that there are not that there's a limited supply of resources, because there's a vendor in the pedestrian district who will sell you the K-Bups and the Starkos infinitely.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So for those who are following along,
I didn't track it, but you're
shaking their head. But that was I went and bought one, and it like replenished itself as soon as the transaction was done. I was like, oh, okay, good. I'm glad to know that. Now I feel like I don't think I knew that the first time. I think I totally went over that and didn't notice it, and was like finding the vending machines everywhere towards the end of the game, because I needed those resources and had not tracked that. I remember scouring for Starkos all over the place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was worried about that too. Is there a place, maybe it's at the mechanic place for the repair wrenches and boosts that's infinite as well? I hope so.
I'm not sure about Mamagos, but I know that there are various crates in the ocean, in the waters.
And I've shot a bunch of those, but I usually just get money out of them.
Well, if you're low on repairs, I have had repair stuff come out of them.
Oh, okay.
So
that's very Zelda in that way.
Yeah, I was after the looter. I did I did a couple of the looters caverns. I don't know if you found those. And
I did do one, but I didn't finish it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Outside of one of those, there was a whole bunch of. I think outside of all of them, there are like crates and stuff, and came out of that having banged myself up pretty good. And when I blew up the crates, there were, and I was low on that stuff, and it
got it.
They were just singles though, so I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if there's. I'll look around and make.
It might be. It might be.
It seems like if they do that with the health, and they would do that with that too. But, I think maybe we mentioned this in the first or second episode, but I think when it comes to the pearls, and I know you want to move on, but I think it's very cool. One, I know we're constantly talking about, and I've already mentioned Zelda multiple times in this episode, and there's always a comparison there. But one refreshing thing that I'm taking away from this game that I had forgotten is that it is nice to have such an important collectible that's also, it's sort of like rupees, I guess, but they have the money that's really the equivalent of rupees. But so they have two currencies, but the pearls are collectibles and currencies, but also it's very, in a good way, it's inconsistent how you get the pearls. There's various ways to get pearls. In the Zelda design, typically something in a category like that would have a fairly consistent means to get them. You know what I mean?
Like a heart.
Like a heart, even the Sculptulas, right? Like they generally were hidden around the world and you had to traverse or shoot or, they're finding them and they had some consistency. Sometimes you got them from a quest or something, but oftentimes it was more about exploration or whatever. But it's not like you would do photography and then get one,
right,
as a reward. So they gave themselves, whether, how much they thought about this or not. For me, it's like giving yourself the freedom to not lock yourself in, like the races, winning a race or doing the side content or doing a side dungeon
or beating Francis
beating Francis. Yeah, exactly.
Air hockey,
Yeah. And it's literally on his hat, so
yeah.
So that's it's just refreshing because Nintendo, albeit, brilliant, can kind of be very structured, in these sorts of systems and very like specific, which I love. I think everyone loves about, Metroid, the formula, right? How you're going to get things generally, and you just have to find and do the things. But it's nice to have a little bit of that loosiness to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something we sort of touched on last week as far as, that this structure allows them to have lots of kind of weird side content they want to have.
Yeah.
And then they can tie that back in by tying it to the economy. I kind of wonder, and Okami was this way as well. They're not, I don't remember if they're part of the economy, but there are 100 pearls in that game as well. There are 88, I think, in this game, but they have a pearl as well. I don't remember what the reward is for them. I did them for their own reward.
Exactly. Yeah. So, which I think is very the very Nintendo in that way, right? Other than rupees, it's in Mario, it's often you're not usually buying things. It is about getting the stars or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, and Mario might be kind of closer in that, there might be a lot of different, they're all going to be kind of levels or level-like experiences, but sometimes it's like, a race or, do a particular, like the slide or whatever. We talked about Mario 64 a million years ago, or talk to somebody, and they'll give you one and, to get all the,
right,
the stars in that one. So it's kind of similar. Definitely drawing from that. I'd say Mario has less structure as far as how you get those.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but fewer verbs overall in that game. It's all about the level design, and in Zelda you have a lot more different equipment and things like that to make it more of an adventure game. So I definitely see why you'd reach to Zelda.
I mean, this game is a weird, kind of interesting hybrid of various things. It's just a very unexpected, I don't know. It's a gem of a game for various reasons. There's some huge flaws, but I think that's the only thing in a way holding it back from being a great game.
Yeah,
in my opinion, for me. But obviously, I'm talking about camera stuff. But it's just a really surprising.
Combat,
combat's fine. Yeah, it's not that interesting, but I think a lot of it is the setups and the enemy designs too that hold it back somewhat. But yeah, there's not a lot of depth there. But it's still a delight. And a callback from minutes ago. I just wanted, a very rare occasion where Brett admitted he was wrong about something and corrected himself before I could. So, I just want to call that out on air. It did happen.
Growing. It's been 8 years.
You're growing. Yeah, you got that one merchant wrong, and you're willing to admit it. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yep.
Baby steps.
Yeah, it happens. I also don't remember a shark. So
Celeophod. I feel like it starts with a C. Anyway,
I don't feel like it starts with a C. But
no, that's an octopus. Huh? Cephalopod.
Yeah, it's not a cephalopod. I'm going to look it up now because let's see. Silachi? I don't know. I don't remember that being one of the things. Anyway.
Selachimorpha. Is that right?
Yeah, that's not what was in there.
No. Chondicrothies.
Oh, it might have been Chandri.
Yeah.
It might have been Chandri.
What we should be doing is looking up the name of that shark that is hiding the code. What is his name? Hank? I don't know.
No, I don't know what his name is.
Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the very side content you did. So you did the looters.
I did, yeah. Some of the looters. I didn't finish it. I kind of, again, I was running out of time, so I guess you finish it by blowing up the ship?
Yeah, at the very end you blow up the ship, but you have to make it all the way through the race, and there are I think there are 4 of them. At least I found a Looters Cave 4, which is out past the barrier, which is why I was like out past the barrier. I'm like, oh, what's out here? And I went in and I think I found the hardest Looters Cave, and it was really hard when you haven't done it yet.
Sure.
And you don't even actually know. This is one thing that with an open world that I think they're still figuring out, that they don't clue you in to something. I mean, I don't know how important it is really, because it's really just go as fast as you can and kind of learn the course, and you'll just kind of get better at it, like the races. So it's very similar to the races, but with hard gates. Like, you can't fail the race. I mean, you can come in last, but you can't, finish the race, right? You learn that you can spend as much time learning the course as you want. But with the Looters Cave, they're stealing money every time. Yeah. So, you've got skin in the game, and you lose that. I think that money's gone forever if you don't get them, the first time, which is fine. There's plenty of money in this economy. There's like rupees, they're everywhere. So it's not really a big deal. In fact, some of the boxes of them respawn. When I was running around in the Slaughterhouse, I was just picking up the same boxes again and again while I was lost in there. So it was like, okay, well, I don't know where I'm going, but at least I got 1,500 more credits while I was wandering around or whatever it was. Yeah. So I think I found the hardest first, and then I still haven't found the easiest, but I did find 2 and 3. And basically, you're in there. It's a race to catch up to them. At the end, you're in a sort of arena enclosed that they can't escape from. It's basically a closed-in cavern, and you blow them up in there. They don't have any weapons. They're just stealing from you. So
then you get your money back if you do.
You get your money back, I think, from that run. I'm not sure about overall.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, who cares?
I think I probably found one of the early ones, but yeah, I got trapped from a gate, and I probably was doing a little bit early. I'm sure, I assume the upgrading your ship helps you with those over time because you have more capabilities.
I'm not sure. There might be an upgrade that makes you faster. If that's the case, then yes.
Or jumping can probably help at times.
Jumping does help a bit because there are levels that have the looter levels that have like those red laser barriers that you want to jump over.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely there are times where it's useful, but it's mostly just go fast and try not to hit the walls, and stay on the water and and things like that. So they're fine. It's kind of like it's one of those things though. If you keep messing it up at the same point, you start to go on tilt, and you're like, what's this 6 times in a row? Dang it, what's going on? Like playing air hockey with Francis. So,
oh yeah, I got so close, but not for the pearl, but just practicing and kind of trying to. But it's such a crapshoot with that thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do that one, but.
I found that my controller, I have these like knockoff PS3 controllers and they're not good. And I'm finding that, like, I don't know if the game's doing this or if the controller's doing this, but like it really likes the 8 canonical directions and like it'll go to one and then you can sort of like push it after that, but that's not what you want in the air hockey game. You need to be able to like aim for that spot.
Exactly.
So I have beaten him a few times for 100 coins, but not for the pearl. So I haven't really tried for the pearl because it's pricey. I wanted to get a little bit better at it first.
Yeah. So I did the other races 1 and 2, and I won those. As an example, I did do the other. I think I mentioned last episode that I did one of the alpha section.
Yeah, I found that too. Yeah, the underground.
Sections. Yeah. So there's the one that you kind of go. It kind of goes down vertically.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one you did?
That's the warehouse. Actually, yeah, that was really cool. We actually have it's mentioned in an email that we'll be reading later.
Yeah, there's that one, and then there's the one with the. Well, so I did. Well, I don't know which one's which, but I did one that I would describe this last time as a warehouse. It's got a bunch of conveyor belts, and it's really big room where you're running on the conveyor belts and kind of going from conveyor belt to conveyor belt.
I haven't done that one, so I don't. I don't remember it. Yeah,
yeah. So it's also warehousey, but it's interesting because it's like a big, huge kind of macro puzzle room. But there's some skill stuff going on because you're running on these conveyor belts, and
that's cool.
Yeah, and then there's the one that's more like Mission Impossible, where you're going down the lasers, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that one was also cool. Yeah. So I love it's Metroid-y, but I love the when I get a key card in a dungeon, knowing that there is an additional use for that key card optionally. That, right? I saw that there's a star key card
and between dungeons, because you actually key cards that you found, I guess not in Black Isle, but in the factory, you can actually use those as well in Slaughterhouse.
Yeah, right.
Which is a very not Zelda thing, right? Zelda's always the original Zelda, I gather, the NES one. I think the keys were not locked to the dungeons, but in the more modern ones, they have been.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, just multi-use keys in general, right?
Yeah.
And seeing the symbol, like I think the next key that you will probably get in the Slaughterhouse is like a star shape, and there's a star shaped or button in the pedestrian district. So you kind of, maybe get that later. But how many more? I guess there's one more main dungeon after the Slaughterhouse.
After the Slaughterhouse, I think we have to get a lot of pearls and go to space.
Yeah.
That's my recollection, but I'm not 100%.
That's like the final.
Yeah, I think that's the end of it.
Finale kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but if I had more time, I definitely would have done more side content. I am impressed. Like I was looking on the map in the in the open kind of world hovercraft area. And I saw these breaks in the line art in the map. right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that just kind of went into a cave, and or I didn't know they were a cave at the time, and I'm like, how? That's weird. Why is that break there? And to have there's a lot of nooks and crannies, more than I realized, especially once you get the jump function. So I'm impressed, and some of them let you kind of go up on the beach, and
Right.
like it. I thought that all
It's
that
a
stuff was
hovercraft.
just
So,
no, I mean it's fair, but I just thought all that stuff was going to be facade, right? Like
yeah.
just but some of it you need to actually kind of drive up onto the geometry. It's not
Yeah.
just a border. So it's good. That's cool.
Yeah, no, it's the hovercraft is it's a neat, vehicle to have in a game because of the sort of amphibious nature of it. It's like I've never actually seen a hovercraft in life. I mean, I've seen a couple movies, but never like actually out and around. They have to be pretty big, I think, to generate what
Yeah.
to
I
be
think
able to
they're
move
really
like that.
loud too, huh?
They are.
Have
I think they're extremely loud.
yeah.
But they're cool. I mean, there was one in a Jackie Chan movie, I remember. So,
Well, Half-Life, right? I mean, I think you mentioned Half-Life before too, and I mean,
that's
it
more
is
of a flat boat, though. It's like a swamp boat, with a big fan on the back.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, I
maybe
think
I'm
so.
thinking of something else. Then I thought that there was. I'm thinking of a more literal
An actual hover boat? Huh.
It must be something else. Yeah, no, maybe it was that. But yeah, you're right. That was more of a swamp. Yeah, I mean, it's again camera. It's like it's definitely cool. And the physics of it are fun. Like I've actually been really surprised to kind of meander into a bit of a hovercraft part of the conversation. I've been surprised about how, like having worked on games with vehicles before, oftentimes vehicles can unfortunately, they kind of get, from a development standpoint, they kind of get artificially limited because they're a vehicle, because you don't want them to be as flexible as like a biped, character, like jumping, right? For instance, right? Like most vehicles don't jump, or even, there's a lot of times when you can kind of like edge yourself up onto a slope and jump. Like there's that one section in the beginning of Slaughterhouse where you're trying to get the mines to chase you.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Remember that section? And then there's like a broken down part of the wall.
Yeah.
That like in most games, the vehicle would not be able to get over that. But in this game, you're just kind of like, I'm just going to like jump up and like push myself over that thing. And they don't care. There's no invisible wall there. It's not, they just kind of let the physics of the vehicle and the buoyancy of the vehicle, which is like also fairly rare. It feels like they're using the buoyancy. It has a buoyant feel to it, which is also not common. So it's actually kind of a refreshing vehicle because they don't limit you as much as I thought they would. And then to start the Slaughterhouse, not to jump ahead to that topic, and then have it be like a real big part of that level is cool.
Yeah, I mean it is. They get a lot of mileage out of the hovercraft. I mean, it is your way of getting around the world. I love that you're going to upgrade it. It's going to be critical, to the end of the game because of all the upgrades you do. I mean, I think I mentioned previously Diddy Kong Racing, which had like a hoverboat kind of. There's like, I think there were three different vehicles in that game, and one of them was a hover. I've
never played any of those.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is on the N64, and there was definitely like a something similar to this craft in that, and that I remember playing Diddy Kong for the first time and being like, I hate this. I hate this ship or this whatever vehicle, this racing vehicle. I want to use the other ones, and then it grows on you. And then in this one, I do find it really nice. They also don't worry too much about steering and things like that, so they're not trying to make a physically realistic in that way, like it does air steering. You can do as much as you want of that. There isn't anything really advanced like power slides or drifting or anything like that if you're in the races, but you don't really need it, for what that part of it is. And the same in the looters caves, it's like, well, you just go fast and learn the course and try to shave off a second every time so you can get through each door as you go, and it's enough. But I will say, and maybe we can move to the Slaughterhouse at this point, that the camera is a real issue when you're dealing with dozens of floating mines, and I mean it's very hard to, even with the hovercraft, where you'd feel like it was a little less constrained. They do like use it in some spaces that don't work super well, like anything narrow is not great for the hovercraft, as I've found. And then anytime you've got lots of obstacles between you and where you want to go, it doesn't control well slowly. So you can't kind of like tiptoe through these, these things, which you sort of can as Jade. So I'll have a note about that in a minute. But I mean, were you finding the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that we've talked about this I know we've talked about it before, but probably many times on the podcast over the years.
It's got to be a partnership between camera and
exactly. That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's the hovercraft is a really good example of that problem that we've talked about before, because it's clear that, through whatever reason, we don't know, and we may never know that whether the levels were being built and the enemies were being built at the same time as the hovercraft and the camera, and so they didn't really, and in these eras, playtesting was at a premium, right, and often wasn't done as much as it should, with the exception of Nintendo, and so
there's probably no user testing.
Yeah, no user testing. So the mines are a good example, but there's often times where the camera is not really able to show you what you need to see from the level design perspective and the enemy design perspective. So definitely this is a really good, I think, case study in those groups not talking and making each other look good,
Right.
And there's no, I think you would agree with this statement, but there's no such thing as a perfect camera that's always able to accommodate anything that level designers come up with. You have to work in
hidden object games.
Hidden object games, right? Yeah, I can put this object anywhere I want, and the camera will always be able to. Yeah. No, it's just
the camera, right? I mean, it is the thing that probably touches the most departments, right? Because and I'll kind of take it into when it's looking at Jade a little bit as well to talk about it. But like I was thinking about it today, you want it to show off the art well, obviously. You want to, and that includes animation often, which includes sometimes framing. There's and that's something this game does. I think it's trying cinematic moments with the camera where it'll just move the camera suddenly, and it's like, well, in theory, I have a better view now, but I'm following my character around, and my character's moved in my frame. So it's like it's discombobulating.
Slaughterhouse has some really rough ones of those.
There's a stealth section where it's like I'm hiding behind this, then I'm going to move up behind the guy. Oh, and I'm going to snap, like camera snap away, and I'm like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, and if I keep the stick going, if I move my stick at all, it's actually going to go toward the danger,
right?
Because they change the relativity of the camera.
Yeah. Design, obviously, level design, especially in general, but of course, general systemic design. What are you going to be able to see, with the camera from what do you need to see from the gameplay perspective, and then of course, a coder's got to make these billion competing needs try to work together. And I think this is one of those games where there were too many people demanding something from the programmer and nobody like saying, no, we need to do less with the camera and just make what it does better and make the spaces, fit the camera that we have, et cetera. So yeah, it's definitely a problem, but yeah, that was an area where, and you have a first person camera in this game besides. So if you want to use it in either case, although not to move with in Jade's case.
It's a series of compromises on every department, and I just feel like, it's and oftentimes it's a production reality, right? Like they probably knew you know, and
I'm sure they knew.
They were trying to ship, you know, and
yeah,
and they were making sacrifices, and that, you know, this room could be better. They knew it could be better based on how it's. I mean, because this is a single player game,
they didn't have Remy to go through and pull crazy hours to do the scripting to make the camera always do what he wanted, which was how he did it. You know,
that's the weird, like, double-edged lesson, right? Of like, you can brute force stuff to fix these problems, but that comes at a huge cost for various things.
Yeah,
human cost as well.
Yeah, for sure. Things. Not to mention, I mean, just the crazy amount of, like, I'm sure that was a headache as well for, like, level loading, because it's a million little objects and stuff that you've got to also load in and construct and all that stuff. You might be streaming some of it with something like Prince of Persia, but I don't really know how that level works, how that game works in that way. But yeah, it's more data you've got to wrangle too, you know. And
oh my gosh, can you imagine opening up a Prince of Persia level in the editor and just seeing
a million, like,
if you turned every layer
planes on. Planes and curves, splines. Oh my god, yeah.
Camera
all
objects.
These transitions, and, like, if you're going this direction or that direction, camera objects, like, okay, need to narrow the POV here or whatever, or change some other settings. Like, well, these days you'd have even more settings. I can't imagine doing it today the same way, because there's so many more settings on the cameras. You know, to get various effects, it would just be it'd be maddening. I think we have an idea now why that game remake might be delayed.
and also, like, I mean, this is a huge guess on my part. I have no evidence of this, but, you know, Ubisoft's game specifically went in what direction? They went in more procedural, open world, not procedural worlds, but, you know, open world games where players are going to go wherever they want. And a lot of the time the camera is roughly a third person camera.
Yeah.
And they're going to help frame if you're climbing maybe, or flying changes and things like that, or obviously vehicles. My Ubisoft years are spent more in the Ghost Recon games than any others, but and so you know, that is a whole different proposition than, you know, you can make modular cameras, you can make modular buildings, right, that you're plopping around and kind of have been somewhat debugged, you know what I mean? In Assassin's Creed case, you've created a traversal system that has a lot of procedural aspects to it that you can attach the camera to. So I mean, they didn't keep going in the Prince of Persia direction.
I mean, the 2005 one was the last you know, sort of its kind. You know, I know that there's this new one, the Lost Crown or whatever, but yeah, I mean, you're very right that they kind of, like, I think that you think about it, the cost that has on, you know, all that scripting and the level design has to accommodate it. Of course, you know, Tomb Raider, you know, that if it's kind of a more niche title like a Prince of Persia that doesn't tend to grab the attention that some of the other ones do, you know, I can sort of see why that is, you know, gone by the wayside in that way. I mean, there's also, you know, they want to own it and they don't own Prince of Persia, so that's a business case as well. But
fair enough. But just as far as, like, them making crafted linear, like, Assassin's Creed could have been a new IP that is like Prince of Persia,
right?
But they went.
They went away from the linear stuff. Yeah, for sure.
But that's why this game is such an interesting, again, hybrid, right? Because they're teasing at the open world structure somewhat, even though it's hub and spoke technically. But then they have these dungeons, which are fairly curated and crafted experiences. So, which is, of course, very Zelda again. But you know, it's kind of like you're biting off various subgenres at once, which definitely impacts production quite a bit when you do that.
Yeah. Which brings us back to the Slaughterhouse, which is, I think, straining at the limits of what one of their levels dungeons can be. It's sort of like 3 dungeons sewn together with hovercraft. And the unfortunate part of it, the thing that I finally realized was frustrating me about it was I couldn't figure out how. So in most of the dungeons, you go there, you get off the hovercraft, and now you walk around. So for those who haven't played the game, and in this case, you go there. It's quite a journey on the hovercraft just to get where you can get off the hovercraft at all. And then when you do get off the hovercraft, like you can get back on the hovercraft and keep going in the level. I mean, there is a hard gate at one point where it's just like you can't go back until you've finished the mission. It's one of those send the pictures to the governor and she'll give you the code deals. So you have to go finish the mission. You're kind of locked in this space. And then the thing that really I finally put my finger on today was that was driving me crazy is that because you're in these 2 different modes of travel, you have 2 different maps.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that.
You can't see the connections. Once you realize that, you can sort of piece it together, but your inclination as a player has been, I just look at the map and I can figure out where I need to go. That is not the case in the Slaughterhouse, and I think it is a real detriment. Once I finally understood that that's why I was having such a hard time, I was like, these aren't all connected together. These are 3 separate mini dungeons inside of one dungeon glued together by hovercraft. But seeing because you can see all the person, the on foot travel all at once for the whole level, the whole dungeon or whatever, the whole Slaughterhouse. It gives you the sense that they are all connected. Like if you just figure out how to do it, that's the way it's been. And you don't even think like, I'm not seeing something here. I'm not seeing connective tissue that is here, which is the hovercraft stuff. So when I finally got that, I was like, okay, now I know what I need to do. And I need to look at those 2 maps kind of in parallel. So I would get on the hovercraft, look at the map, get off the hovercraft at a dock at the same place.
Oh, wow.
I just get on and off and be like, I see how it fits together now.
Yeah.
But that's not what you want. So
no.
they could have used 2 colors, they could have done something.
Well, they have layers as well already as part of their interface. They could have just put it like on another sort of like go left and right instead of up and down or something, and switch your mode.
Yeah, switch between them or something. I think you want to see it at the same time. So, but yeah, I finally, when that finally clicked into place, I was like, I can do this now. But I had this expectation they were all connected, and I just could not. I spent so much time walking around the one easy to get to area, or the one that was easy for me to figure out how to get to. And I went through it like 4 times, just like, nope, no, it really doesn't connect to anything else. I'm just bashing myself against it. Like, all the guards are dead, thankfully, because that's the section I was in was one where there's a lot of there are a couple that I didn't kill, but mostly you're supposed to, because they're in places where you can't get to them. You're supposed to shoot them down. They don't move, they don't turn and stuff, so you can't stealth past them. You're supposed to shoot them. And
we'll see.
Yeah, well, you have fun. Good luck with that. I mean, you could, I guess. Oh no way. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you could do it that way. But
there's try. One. Yeah, there's one that I'm at right now that I stopped last night that I think I'm gonna have to take out, but I'm not positive yet.
Do you have save anywhere?
Nope.
Okay, you have to use the M discs and all that stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I realized when we were playing Ubisoft games, I should check.
This is a terrible port. I mean, I should, but I don't. This is barely I can't even. I'm still playing at the wrong aspect ratio.
Yeah, I know.
Even when I change the monitor's aspect ratio to 4:3, and I go back and play the game, it changes it back to the wrong.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It somehow detects that I have a 16:9, and it's just like, I don't know.
I'm just going to have to stretch it. Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's an ini file someplace, but I just can't be bothered. So
yeah, well, I don't blame you.
Yeah, so that's going to help me finish quite a bit, because I think I'm only in one of those wings. I mean, when you describe it as it's 3 dungeons stitched together with the hovercraft, then I see what that big central section is, probably hovercraft stuff or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say, though I agree with everything you said for sure so far, because it's very confusing. And then the map thing I didn't even realize. I mean, speaking of the sort of camera and everyone playing together nicely to make the camera work right, maps are the same thing. Like,
yeah, sure.
If it's like, well, we have a 2D map in this game, everybody. Oh, we do? Okay. Well, what does that mean? Well, you have layers, you can do levels, but anytime you're going to ask the player to go between those levels, you got to be really careful and intentional, because the map is not going to solve your problem for you, because it's 2D. It's just, like Zelda. So I think Zelda's always done a good job at like, okay, I'm on this level. Okay, now I'm on this level. It's all 2D.
Well, anyway, and they put ladders and things often on the.
Oh yeah, you know where the level transitions are. Yeah, and this
you don't.
Yeah. But what I will say though is when I don't remember the exact moment, but when I guess it's that first gate maybe, that when you do have the revelation there, because I forgot about the structure of this level. I'm pretty sure I played it because some of it I remember, but the first time you get off of it and then go and open a gate and then get on it and then go through, that's such a revelation for the game, I think, where you're like, oh wow, I'm actually driving this. I think it's that time when you both, which is even cooler because you have to actually use double H. So you push that gate open. You use the push mechanic and you push this huge gate open and he does the other side. So you've already used your companion, and then you drive the hovercraft through onto the water on the other side. That's like kind of a little bit of a mind-blowing moment for the game. So even though it's definitely cumbersome and not fully well executed, I applaud them for going for it,
Yeah. I mean, I think these days, we would probably just cut to like, okay, you did the thing. Now we'll just put you in the vehicle, and right. we wouldn't be, but this game is definitely committed to, the players in charge of those things, and we don't just make those decisions for the player. I think, I mean, and that's a perfectly reasonable choice. It is less work to, it may not sound like a big deal to like, well, we'll just cut and move the characters. There's a lot involved whenever you do that, because there's probably AIs that are on or off, depending on whether you're on foot or in the hovercraft. And now you have to gather up all of those and turn them on or off, and you always forget something, because I know if anyone's seen to stay on Ubisoft, I think it was Assassin's Creed Unity, the one that's in Paris, Revolutionary Paris. There was a lot of weird, characters who were still walking through the space where you were having a conversation with somebody else. It's that sort of stuff where it's like, oh, somebody didn't put a cutout in the pathing so that other just rando NPCs wouldn't walk into the middle of our conversation, right? So there's a million systems that you end up to cut away to move characters from here to there. And these days with physics and stuff, it also can be super weird. You forget to turn off something and something that the player's carrying, and and it's it can be quite a thing. Ask me sometime about Skyrim's bee.
Sky, as in the bug?
Yes, as in a bumblebee. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, we had this cart section at the beginning of the game. Oh, you're finally awake.
Where is this going?
There was this horse. I think it was Nathan Perky Pyle who documented this on Twitter. It was Jean Simonet who was up against this bug. This is a friend of ours we played D&D with. Jean worked for me at Bethesda, and so there's a section where you're in this cart with a horse that's pulling you, and it's all physics. There are people in the cart and with you, and you're in there. You can't move because you're a prisoner. All the Elder Scrolls start with you as a prisoner, and you're going down the road. So in development, there would be these places on the road where suddenly the cart would just freak out. Like it would just start like, if you've ever seen janky physics, like the joint maintains its constraint, like it doesn't detach, but the thing just like swings wildly and all this stuff, and then eventually the forces get so great that I don't know, everything will pull
shoots
off into space or whatever. So that was happening on this road down into the beginning of the character beginning of the game, and it turned out that we had all these like bees and there are various insects and things that you could find that were like spell components or whatever, alchemy components. And one of them had physics on it. And every so often would fly across the road at just the right time that it came between the horse and the cart would stop because this was the world's most massive bee. And the cart would just like jam up against it, and the horses were still pulling it, so the thing would just flip all over the place. And of course, it's a bee, so you can't see what's causing the problem because it's tiny. So, oh man, what a bug! So to
like
speak.
Literally, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great that he documented it for people to read about it because it's such a great development. Bug.
Nightmare.
Situation.
Yeah.
It's like legendary. I think, we mentioned the sack earlier as far as like they try to be somewhat diegetic with their inventory too, because like she has a thing on her hip, I think. And then the discs we talked about were to save the game. This is a small touch I forgot to mention last time when I was talking about the discs. Like you have your email disc, but then even saving the game is its own disc, and you go to the same place where you read email. But the thing that I know, this is a super minor thing that people are going to roll their eyes at with me being OCD about this stuff, but you take this, you go to save your game. You go to the menu, to your sack or whatever, and you pick the disc, the green disc, to save your game. They cut back outside, and they show her take the disc out of her bag, and then they cut back
into the machine. Yep.
They don't need that cut, but they did it because they wanted to show her take the save game disc out of her bag.
They committed to the bit, fully committed to the bit.
Yeah. And so that's like the minor, small version of the hovercraft in Slaughterhouse of like, no, you're going to have to get out of the hovercraft.
This is how it works. Yeah.
Run around, come, and then jump back into it, and I got to hand it to them. Like they committed to it. And the hovercraft is almost like an inventory item, right? It's like a thing you have that you can use as a tool, and you're going to get in and out of it. You have to wait for Double H to get into it too.
Yep.
Luckily, the times when it's timed, they scripted him to jump in first, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
And then you got to move it to the other side of the gate, and then do your next thing. So it's like you can see the meeting where they're like, you know what, we need to make a dungeon with the hovercraft being part of the traversal, and they're like, yes, that's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it makes sense. They're escalating. They want to tell more of the story of that Iris is reporting on and all of that stuff. So
you invested a lot in the ship, right? So you're going to want to use it more, and like you said, it also is the space solution too, right? Does it become the beluga then that he talked about?
I don't remember. I think it must because that's the upgrade, right? You buy the upgrade.
It's called the beluga.
No, the upgrade's just this giant rocket. I think that's in the it's like 50 or whatever, 45, 50, whatever it was, pearls.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be getting there, pal. Especially if you've got a rough port. But we'll see.
I mean, the thing, the what's turned out to be the worst part, because like the graphical stuff, and still, anytime I have, like, if I go into a
alpha
menu, anytime I have alpha, like I get this, like I'll take a video with my phone if you really want to see it, but it's tolerable. But the biggest thing is the sensitivity controls for the sticks, because they just mapped it to the mouse sensitivity, so I don't have fine tuning. Like
So you go to click on something and it flies across the screen?
Well, just the right stick is very sensitive, and I can't make it not that way. Or I guess what it is the curve is not forgiving, so it's either very slow or very fast.
That's also true. That's also true of the PS3 controller.
Okay, well then never.
That's
because for instance, the first person view to shoot the little discs out of my glove,
right?
Nearly impossible to aim at anything.
Yeah, if it's something moving, you're in trouble. The key is to zoom all the way in because then you're covering more space.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so if you're like shooting those little things on the ground. No, I mean zoom in, and then it's easier to move because you're so zoomed in. You move more slowly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll try that. Yeah. But I mean, shooting an enemy, like there's a couple enemies where you have to shoot with the disc, right? And so luckily they have an auto lock on when you first tap it. So what I end up just doing is kind of tap and then untap and then tap and then untap. So I get a free, auto aimed shot once they stop before moving again. Anyway, it's a nightmare. But so if there's some skill tests later about all that stuff, then I definitely am doomed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you need all of the pearls like we speculated in the first episode. I honestly don't remember, but thinking about the math, it's like maybe that's you have to. In which case,
how much? 50?
I think it's 45. My recollection is that the progression is 3, 5, 15, 20, 45, or 15, 30, 45 rather. Does that work out? That's 60, 90. No, that's too many. So it must be 20. So it's 3, 5. Yeah, I think it's pearl. You have exactly as many pearls as you need. Oh, that's terrible.
That's rough. Yeah, that's not a collectible. That's a key.
Yeah. I think. Well, I don't know how many pearls there are. There might be more pearls than there might be more pearls than you need. That's also possible. I haven't tried to figure that out at all. So.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood what you meant then. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. I mean, I know that there's. I think you need 88, but I don't know if there are only 88 pearls in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a lot though. Yeah,
but I only know that because I looked at the trophies and because there's not that many because it's a remaster or whatever, the HD version, and there's 8 achievements, and one of them is get 88 pearls. So I'm like, is that all the pearls, or is that just enough pearls to buy all the stuff? And then there's other pearls. It's hard to know.
Oh, we'll find out.
We will find out, and you can hear about it next week. In the meantime, let's turn to email. We have kind of a long one. Maybe I'll pick up from you in the middle somewhere. I'll go open it up in my browser. But this was sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. Yeah, maybe I'll pick it up at some point, just to give you a rest.
Okay. Okay, so mail about BG&E from Sasha. Hello, Sasha. Dear T and B. So glad you're doing BG&E, and coincidentally, I recently started playing it again too. Oh, well, that's very coincidental. It's part of this whole retro revival thing I'm going through. More on that later. But first, I wanted to share some thoughts and memories of the game, which I originally played in 2004. I bought it because the magazine I was into had given it a very positive review. And they would go on to lament that not enough people had noticed this excellent game. Oh, but I just remembered something. I remember I really couldn't understand why this game was called Beyond Good and Evil. Still can't. Can you? Maybe this title has a clue as to why it was so overlooked. Yeah, I think that's actually a good point. I think this title has always been weird for people.
Yeah, it's not
a marketable title.
No. And how do you search for it when there's existing literature? Anyway.
Right. Anyway, the memory I really wanted to share was about the little Alpha Section's warehouse level. I think my memory got fuzzy. Anyway, I played through this one evening on my little bedroom TV and was just so completely immersed. I mean, the stealth experience was so tightly orchestrated. After getting through this section, including the frenetic escape at the end, I felt that it had been just about the best bit of gameplay in my life. This feeling would stay with me for years and years. And so before this year, I never really needed to replay the game, but would sometimes just call back to that feeling from that evening.
As an aside, I really appreciate things like that quirky spiralized code inputter. Those kind of bespoke user interfaces are so fun. Not to mention the Roger Deanish Art Nouveau font choice for the menus. And I was really tickled to hear you point out that the engine was custom. That's pretty rare these days. Which brings me back to my feelings on the present time. I'm so sad, parentheses, as I'm sure are you, about the current state of the industry with its mass firings. You don't have to talk about that unless you want to, but it contributes to this perception I have that many large entities such as PlayStation are far too interested in showing investors the appearance of profitability at the cost of pursuing the things they used to nurture, the imagination, creativity, and joy of play. Given the slightly disillusioned feeling I get from big modern games, I think I'd best stick to indie games for the near future, as well as diving into nothing newer than the PS2 and GameCube libraries. From Sasha, or also Scary Tiger, I guess is the other name. So I alluded to Beyond Good and Evil last week. We've kind of mentioned Nietzsche. Nietzsche wrote a book called Beyond Good and Evil, which is a book of philosophy, a moral philosophy, that this title comes from, and it's specifically. I can't really go into great detail. First of all, I haven't read it in a long time, but Nietzsche believes that is kind of asserting that there is a will to power. People who know their history might know where that got reused. That takes you beyond good and evil. That's kind of his whole project, is like how morals came to be and what morals we have now versus what morals we used to have, and things like that. So he was a massively important continental moral philosopher, and this was probably his best known book. I don't think his best book, in my opinion, but definitely his best known. He writes in all these like little aphorisms too, which makes it even harder to read because it's like a couple of sentences and then he moves on to the next point. And you're like, but where's the argument? So it's like it's hard to kind of put all together. Anyway, that's where I believe the title comes from.
And in how intentional was, other than kind of a cool sounding name, albeit opaque. As you've described this a couple times, not having read the book myself, is there something in this game that is beyond good and evil? Like, is it
I think with the alien behind the DOMs that you'll meet at the end,
like a grander force.
That would be my illusion.
Power.
Yeah. That would be, I think, where it was coming from, is that thing has this will to power.
Yeah.
That is beyond good and evil.
Yeah, which is
that's a stretch.
Stretching it, because that's clearly an evil thing. It's like it's very two-dimensionally melodramatically presented.
I don't remember what the motivations of this alien thing is, so it's possible that its motivations are like about restoring its race or something like that, which would not necessarily be evil. Maybe it's anti-colonial. I have no idea. I don't remember. It didn't leave much of an impression as far as what the motives are behind this thing that's going on with Jade, that she's got this memory in her brain. That's all going to come back at some point. It's just funny because we haven't talked about that really. We kind of touched on it last week because she had a little vision, but they haven't returned to it.
One time, right, when you saw they've only done it twice so far,
right?
And if that really is some sort of core element to the theme, and it does relate to Beyond Good and Evil, they definitely needed to be addressing it many more times than they have.
Yeah, and I don't remember it, so clearly it did not leave an impression.
Yeah, that's fair.
As far as the state of the industry right now, I definitely feel the pain. We see these notices, just as everybody else does, and it is rough out there right now. I've really enjoyed seeing Larian speaking truth to power on that one. It seems like every other week they're winning another huge award and going on stage and saying, that there is a real problem with the structure of the industry and the people who are making the choices about how who gets hired and fired. To just kind of speak broadly. So keep up the good fight, Larian, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's I don't know what more to say at this point. We're in the middle of it for sure. We've had our own setbacks, as some of you may or may not know. And we're surviving sort of, but it's not just games, right? The economy in many places, and wars, and the planet is in rough shape. And so the fact that it's hitting our industry is not sort of too surprising. But what's more is that it is, as you're pointing out with Larian's brave comments, it is really shining a light on how broken the funding and investment and publishing structure is for our industry. We know that film has similar problems, but they have more unions, and there's a lot of things that other industries have gone through before that we are still haven't gone through or are going through now. And I think that we're just still kind of in the grand scheme of things, a young industry that, it's hard to dislodge some of those traditional models, especially for public companies. So I think as is sort of the point of indie development, like indie's going to have to trailblaze. They're going to have to be the ones to, and they always have been, kind of buck these trends. And we're kind of in a weird middle ground. So it's hard for us to speak to it, as openly as we'd like to.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to specifically dive into our own things. I just was picking up the things that I had noticed, in the industry, the things that kind of, I've been there going, yes, say it loud.
Super, yeah, totally. It's good for them. And they have not only just the platform, but they have the back, they can back it up, right? They self-published that game, right? Yeah. They worked with a licensor, but that's like a huge success for all of us, right? To have them do so well, take their time making a great game, and then also to have it succeed. And then they also said they're not working with that licensor anymore. It's they're like, oh no, what happened?
No, we're not going to, I mean, can you imagine to walk away from that kind of success and just be like, yeah, we're not going to do DLC. We're not going to do any more of that because we don't believe in what they're doing.
That's exactly what we needed them to do.
Yeah.
So that's super brave. Yeah. So it's great that they're.
Yeah, and to your earlier point, I also want to call out, it's not just Sony. In fact, Sony, they definitely had a layoff of their own. That there were some much bigger ones. I think that one's kind of recent, and so maybe fresh when the email was originally written. I know this one had multiple drafts. I see out there, Sasha, but the world went through a lot, with the pandemic, between the pandemic and the especially the war in Ukraine, and how that impacted world markets because of its breadbasket economy. Things really got thrown out of whack over the last few years. And although in the United States we've not been hit as hard with the inflation, though we have had inflation, it's a lot has been done by world banks to try to settle that, and businesses will always take advantage. So when interest rates are low, make a lot of big investments. So, and then when they go back up again, go, oh no, we made all these big investments. So, that's basically what's going on. Yep. I will not say further because my mouth gets myself into trouble. So I'm learning. See, 8 years in.
Yeah. Wow. 2 moments in one episode.
I know.
Hallmark day.
Don't expect it to continue.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, thank you for that email, Sasha. Scary Tiger, to devgameclub@gmail.com. I haven't had a review in a minute. I guess we had one a couple weeks ago. Maybe a few weeks ago. Appreciate them always. We love to read them on the show. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com, on Twitter, Threads, and Insta at devgameclub. And you can find my friend here twitching at twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
Where you are still playing Final Fantasy VI.
Mm-hmm.
With the you're about to get to the World of Ruin, I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think so. I just finished the city. What's the city's name again?
Where it's raining all the time. You mean?
No. I'm beyond that. The one where the emperor is and all that.
Anyway. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Tex Magitech.
Yeah. Whatever.
Anyway. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. That's my recollection too, but I think you're pretty close. So you can check that out. It'll be the day before this comes out, but we say it every week, so it's every Tuesday generally, if you can make it. We also have a fan Discord where you can see that announcement and many other discussions and topics run by the fans. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo, that Discord, our merch store, all by Mark Garcia. Have fun being a wimp, weak, or a wuss, and getting back to your knitting this week. And good night.
Good night.